Okay, sorry about the folks who have logged in right now to look at this recording because we missed the initial part. But take a look at the slides and it should be self-explanatory. If you're absent for today's class, then by default, you have been assigned to group 4, groups 4 and 5. And then what we will do is, wait, hold on, 1, 2, 3. Sorry, just group 4. You've been assigned to group 4 and your database will be chosen for you. You will be working on LexisNexis and just follow the directions on the slide. Now, one of the last things you have to do is you have to be, this is part, what we're engaging in is called the synthesis of knowledge. We're actually generating new knowledge by doing a systematic review. So we have to be disciplined, focused. It's like doing a research project. You have to be systematic. One way to be systematic, well, I would say it is the only way to be systematic, is to have a record book to document not just your training with Dr. Jeralamy, but also to record your regular activity. Typically, does anybody know if you are studying a 3-credit course, what is the expectation of study time? Lecture time, if a 3-credit course is 3 hours a week, is what you're supposed to have in lecture time. Approximately, what's a recommended amount of study time you should be spending? It differs from student to student, I get that, but what's the bare minimum you should be spending on a 3-credit course per week to do well?
10 to 15.
10 to 15 hours?
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. I guess, yeah, if that's what's needed. The answer is whatever is needed, okay? And that's the right answer, so there's no fixed answer. But if you're spending less than 3 hours a week for a 3-credit course, you're not going to go anywhere with it. What needs to be in your record book, and since you're a team, try to use a shared record book. Typical titles on your e-record book, keep it electronic so you can actually move it back and forth. And then when you end up submitting different things and I want to rate each person for the work they've done, it's good to see the record book so I know who's done what. You should have a date, you should have the title of the activity. So for example, if you're meeting Dr. Jeralamy tomorrow, say you're meeting her on the 15th. So it would be 15/01/2021. The title of the activity is Training to Use Web of Science, description of activity. So for description of the activity, you don't know what you're going to do. So first you're going to go through the whole thing and write a short 4 or 5 line description. So we went on to our computers, we did A, B, and C, and findings is what you learned from it. And if you're doing a training session, your findings would simply be that we have picked up on some search terms and search filters to be able to use for our findings. And next steps would be to initiate and save searches and so on. So for every day that you spend doing work on the course, keep a page, keep a record of what you're doing. And even when you describe your activity, if it's training, nobody's specifically doing anything except attending training. But when you're doing searches, you may decide to divvy up the work in different ways. If one person is doing searches the one time and the other person says, well, we don't want our searches to all kind of overlap, so why don't you do the searching today and we'll save everything that you have, and when I do the next set of searching with an alternate set of keywords, we'll save them separately so we're not duplicating the same thing. So then, whoever does it on day 1, you can put their name there and all of that. And also, for all of these databases, there's a way to save all your searches so you're not searching fresh every time. The other thing I would suggest is a lot of this work, the initial work, is not rigorously mental work in the sense that you're not doing a lot of conceptual learning, hard memorization, any of that stuff, but it is time consuming. So you can't get much done in 30 minutes a day. So you really want to say you have only 2 hours a week to spend on this course. I'm just making a hypothetical situation. You want to make sure that you give this activity a block of 2 hours. It's going to take you that much time. By the time you search, you sift, and you decide what's important, what's not, and so on. It's a slow process. It's a little bit tedious. Okay. So that's what I want you to do. And this is for your own benefit, because afterwards, when it comes to, when I want to look at your process, your methodology, because that's a marked component, one of the things I'm going to request you for is your e-record book. So when, if you have your e-record book, I can quickly look at it and know the process that you've been through. Has it been logical? Have you missed anything? Have you completed everything, and so on? So that's all about the slideshow. Now, to also help you organize yourselves better, I've kind of stuck some timelines on the course outline. And is everybody here now comfortable with Mendeley, or has started working with Mendeley? Anita, you're nodding no. What are you waiting for? Yeah, just get started, okay? Momina, you were absent last time. We spoke about using Mendeley. Did you have a chance to see the recording?
Yes, I did. That's when I signed up and I accepted and got into it. So I saw the YouTube link.
Okay, very good. Go ahead and get yourselves, you are going to need Mendeley sooner than you realize, but you have some time. You can still contact Dr. Jeralami and get started with the database searches itself. So the way it's set up right now, I'm just going to minimize the window a little bit. So we have determined the teams and choice of databases. At this point, right after class or sometime today, go ahead and email Dr. Jeralami. Even though she is our librarian, she teaches several courses. So it's not like she has all the time in the world available to her. So it's best to make appointments and sort your training out. Now, all of you will not get trained at the same time because you're all working on different databases. So she will be training each team separately. That's why, the sooner you connect with her, the better it is. At this point, moving forward, we will not need to meet until the 25th. On the 25th, what we will do is each team will, it's an informal presentation. We don't need you to put up a PowerPoint, but I would like each team to talk about what their search strategy was, what are the results they're coming across, just so it kind of tells me how the search is going and what kind of success you're having. And keep in mind, if you're not having very much success with the strategy, Dr. Jeralami will teach you this as well, is to how do you switch keywords around, how do you flip different terms. I have a question in the chat window. I was having as, oh, okay. All right. Anyway, so once we talk about the search strategy and results, etc., then we use the Prisma flow sheet. The Prisma flow sheet isn't attached to D2L, but it's pretty straightforward. If you if you Google PRISMA systematic reviews, it'll take you to the website, and there is a flow sheet. I think it's on the first PowerPoint. It basically gives you an idea of what is expected. So you start with a large number of articles. Let me see if I can pull it up here. Give me a second. Let's try this. Okay. That's not what I was looking for. Oh, there we go. There we go. So this is typically the process, right? So you're going to go identify a whole bunch of articles. You start with identifying articles. So that could be whatever, n equals. So in an ideal world, you want to find at least 100 hits, okay? So each one of you is doing a different database, so we'll have multiples of this. Now, the team that hasn't showed up today will be doing this, additional records identified through other sources, because they're going to look at popular media like newspapers, online sources, and so on. Now, because you're searching through different databases, each team, there are bound to be duplicates. I mean, there's no, that goes without saying. So one of the next steps, and this is a step that you don't have to do, you may have to sift through duplicates in your own searches, but really, if there are duplicates between different databases, that is something that me and the senior research team will do. Once the duplicates are removed, the records will get screened, and each one of you is going to write your own annotated bibliography, but we will do a secondary screening as well as to additional removal of any records that are not relevant, other than what you may remove because they don't fit the criteria that we're choosing, okay? After that, so there'll be, we don't know, let's say start with 100, maybe 65, 70 are removed, okay? Or let's say 75 are removed. Maybe in the end, you just have 25 articles that are eligible. Maybe you have 5 articles that are eligible. We don't know. We don't know till you go through the process. So one team may have 14 that are eligible. One team may have 5 that are eligible. And at this point, when we have a smaller number of articles, say about 50 or 60, we may still remove more articles depending on methodology or any limitation we may have. Now, it's hard for us to determine all the rules right now because we don't know what even we are starting with in terms of articles. So the criteria for removing these articles, this will happen later, and this is not, we're not going to put this on you. But once the articles have all been sorted out, then what we're going to do is we're going to have essentially the sections. I should probably get rid of the squiggles. Okay. At that point, what we're going to do is we're going to have a number of studies that we will include. Probably the number will be about, I want to say between 25 and 50 at the most. What will also be done by the senior research team, which is myself, Dr. Badin Nevrozikia, and Dr. Nisha Sheen, who works at Waterloo, is at this point what we will do is we will distribute these studies into sections, okay? And while these are distributed into sections, what we'll do is we will reallocate each relevant section to a team to write and finish up. Now, even though you will write and finish them up, they won't be ready for publication, and we will have to work as a senior team to finish them off to get them ready for publication. But that's okay. That's okay. You would have done your task, and that would obviously that would include all of you when the paper is published. Okay. Any questions thus far?
Just a quick question.
Sure.
On the ebook, we meet the librarian and all that. Do we start recording down all the research we do? So say like tomorrow morning, I found this article. Do I start recording that in the ebook, or is it just like the meeting with the
No, you have to record what you search and what you find. Now, keep in mind, this is a very systematic search. So at any given time, you're not going to end up with one article. It's likely that you'll end up with a couple dozen, 2 dozen, 3 dozen articles. And you're going to have to save those articles, and most databases will allow you to save those searches. And what will happen is you'll search with this bunch of terms. Say you search isolation, say you search isolation and technology and long-term care homes. You end up with a bunch of research results. Say you end up with 50 articles, 60 articles, whatever it is. You save that search. So that means you save the title, the abstract, which you can go through later. Now you're going to switch terms around. You might use seniors, you may use loneliness, and you may use virtual reality. Okay, that's going to give you a different set of data, but still all relevant to the central topic at hand, which is electronic intervention. So, and then you may switch a third time or a fourth time because we want to collect as many articles as possible. We're also going to gate it because we're not going to keep it open forever. We're going to say, initially the plan was to look at COVID alone. So that means we would just start at 2019 and go to 2020 right now. Or we can put an additional search term, COVID. Okay, but if you end up with very few articles, maybe it might be more interesting to find in general how technology has helped alleviate these challenges in the field. So there's a little bit of play around that you'll have to do. You want to end up with a decent number of articles to start to work with, and in the end, you really want to address how there might be a solution in technology that can be applicable in long-term care. That's what we're getting towards. We're trying to provide some decision making for policymakers to essentially be able to use this information moving forward.
Okay. Sorry. Tree,
Go ahead, Arthika.
all the articles that we find in the search, should we put them all in Medley?
Mentally, you're not going to put, well, no, you don't put all of them. And the reason you don't put all of them is, say, for example, you use one set of key terms, and let's say you find 200 articles, okay? So now you have a search. You don't know that all of those papers are applicable. Some of them may not be okay because maybe they didn't have ethics approval when they did the experiments. Some of them may not be okay when perhaps they're not geographically limited. Perhaps they're not North American. Okay, some of them may not be valuable because they're looking at older adults, but they're not long-term care. So you'd have to read the abstract to determine. So you only put the ones that go into Mendeley would be the ones that you put in after you do an initial screen.
Okay.
Okay, Tree?
So with that screening process, we would need to know what those eligibility criteria are. Like, are we looking just North America? Are we looking just COVID? Like, how are we going to know what we're looking for? And are we looking for primary sources at that point, or? Okay,
good question. So here is the thing. Because we don't actually know what each database will find, we really don't know. We're going completely into the dark. It's an iterative process. It's almost like qualitative research where you keep shaping the terms so that you can get as much information as you can. So in an ideal world, I wouldn't put a geographic limitation on it. Okay, I'd just keep it completely open. But if you end up with 22,000 results, then you probably want to limit it to North America. You probably want to limit it in a COVID context, because then you know you're only getting articles from the past 14 months. So you're going to have to, for every change you make, you can start off broad and go narrow, or you can start off narrow and go broad. And I'm not picky which way you go, but you should have a rationale. So for example, if you say, if you use Boolean terms, COVID and long-term care homes and older adults and loneliness and technology, and you end up with 5 articles, right? It's too narrow. You'd still record it. You'd still say these were the terms tried. The search ended up giving us exactly 5 articles. And, you know, so in order to increase sensitivity of the search, you might remove one term, or you might change one term. You might, because older adults may not be commonly used, you might just try swapping out older adults with seniors and try the search again. And if you still get 5, 6, 7 results, then you might want to remove a geographical restriction. You might want to just go and not put a specific term there. You see what I'm saying?
Well, let's say we get 5, but I look at the abstracts and I realize that 3 of them don't really pertain to what we're talking about. So now, do I scrap the whole search and start over, or do the 2 that really applied get added to Mendeley?
Yeah, you add those 2. You add those 2, but you'd have to go back and search again anyway.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. You would add those 2. Yeah. So from every search, it's well, I'm optimistic that you don't end up with a very, very small number, but it is possible. It's absolutely possible, despite your best interest, once you've applied a few filters. So the way this process works well is if all the researchers, so for the purposes of this project, you are all researchers, you're doing research, okay? So it's important that the researchers understand the fundamental question that we're trying to ask. We all recognize that social isolation has increased quite greatly
Mhm.
as a result of COVID. It's not that social isolation and loneliness wasn't there before, it's just become greatly exaggerated. And as a result, several interventions are being tried. And our goal is to essentially identify what interventions are being tried, what's working and what's not working. So if we can get some kind of a picture, that's the big picture,
Mhm.
right? And what we want is to be able to find some evidence that gives directionality.
Okay, so is Dr. Gerolami then, is her role to help us with this initial screening process?
Dr. Gerolami's role is to help you search. The
Okay.
screening process will be done by the students. She will not be going through the abstracts and telling you this applies and this doesn't apply.
Okay.
Those are decisions you will make, and you can provide the rationale for including or excluding certain papers. So for example, you might reject a half dozen papers because they all might be reviews. So you might, okay, so the first thing to understand is we are not looking for reviews. We're looking for primary papers.
Primary papers. Okay.
Primary papers. So we are not looking for reviews. Our idea is to look for actual work that has been done.
Let's say we get 200 and 175 of them are reviews. I'm just saying, do I have to list all the ones that are reviews that we rejected, or
No, you
I
can
just say a certain number were rejected because they were reviews?
you can tell me a certain number was reviewed, but because you're going to save your search results, if I want to look at them, it would be very easy for me to just look at it and go, okay, well, these are the 200 she found. She only picked these because the rest she has told me are reviews,
Okay.
right? And it's basically documenting everything. It's just like it's doing a research project. That's what you're all doing. You're doing a research project, and it's about maintaining a paper trail for everything you do. And it's not for me, it's also for you to know why you rejected certain number of things, right? If 5 days ago, if you did something and you don't remember because life is so fast, you can just go back and see, well, I rejected this and this because of A, B, and C. And in the middle of your search, if you decide to change your criteria because you've found a cooler set of terms, uh, you may reconsider stuff that you excluded before. And the only way to go back to it is if you have a record.
Right.
Right?
Okay. I get it now.
Okay.
Thank you.
And you're all new to this. So, you are going to learn step by step, but this is doable. This is, because the work is split up into 4 teams, it's not a great amount of work in the end. It's going to be a very reasonable amount of work. You're not going to have to kill yourself doing anything. Okay. It's going to be fun also. You will learn so much. What else did I want to say? Yeah, that's pretty much it. And then the other thing is, because we won't have formal classes does not mean I'm not available. I'm always available. So just, day one, you're concerned about something, just send me an email. We'll make a time, we'll sit, we'll look at what you're finding, and then we'll walk through it. Okay, so it is intended that all of you have the right supervision to be successful in this project. And also remember, as you work along, because it is an iterative process, which means we do something, we go back, we fix it, we do it again. There are multiple times. So we might get to a point where we have all narrowed down our articles, and then we feel that, oh my God, we forgot such a key word, such an important word, such an important term. So we may have to go back once or twice to go and find anything missing by using those additional search terms. Hopefully we get our search terms right in the first few tries, but search is an iterative process. It takes multiple tries. You have to go a little bit back and forth. All of that should end by the 8th, the 8th of March, because that's when your annotated bibliographies are due. So all your searching should end by then. Unless we have anything else that you absolutely have to cover in that time, that should be pretty much it. Any other questions? Okay, everybody has a pretty good idea. Are you all starting to think about keywords, key terms? But does everybody have the idea what we're going after? Is anybody not clear as to what we're looking for? The reason I'm not giving you very specific terms, if you can understand, is because it's the concept that is important, which is technological mitigation of social isolation and loneliness. And if I give you very specific terms, then if you find too much or too little, then I'm making it too inflexible for you. So you can use terms, synonyms, alternate terms, and so on. And this is something Natasha will help you with. Tree?
I was going to ask if we were going to get together at some point to kind of share these terms to.
Yes.
Okay.
So that date is, oh, for search terms itself, well, we didn't plan a date, but we could put one in there. 25th is when you're talking about search strategy. So 25th of Jan. So yeah, in a couple of weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, so we will meet on the 25th. So that's like your midterm for the search period. That's like a midterm kind of discussing with everybody as to what success they've had and what success they're not having, and to change terms and do alternate searches and all of that. Okay, very good. Looks like, does anybody have any questions? Questions, concerns?
Just a quick question.
Yes, sir.
Our topic is to argue for technology. Is it against, or just trying to understand the role of technology and like kind of looking from all points of view?
No, your objective is not to make an argument or to write an essay. Your objective is to search for evidence.
Okay.
Okay. So there will be a writing component, but so the course is split into 3 different things. The first activity is you're searching for evidence, any form of evidence. And in your case, Artika, you're doing AgeLine, and you're going to look at the communication studies database. So you're going to find evidence of the use of technology in alleviating different challenges for older adults, particularly in a long-term care setting. Okay, so that's going to be your first goal. The second goal is, once you have your 200, 250 articles, you sort them out, you probably end up with 10 or 15 articles. You write an annotated bibliography of those 10 or 15 articles. An annotated bibliography, as we discussed previously, is essentially you have the citation and you comment. So when you write your annotated bibliography, you will have to have read those 15 or 20 articles. You don't have to read the 2,000 that you pick up. That's not an expectation. Those you're going to filter sort rather quickly based on reading the abstract, maybe getting to the conclusion, or quickly looking at the methods. That's a relatively it'll still take time. To reject a paper even without reading it fully will probably be a 15 to 20-minute task. It's not going to be all that fast unless you're a speed reader, which I'm not, so it takes me more time. So anyway, part 2, annotated bibliography. Each of those 10 or 15 papers you will read, and you will write a blurb of 150 to 200 words, commenting upon the paper. So it's not going to look like an abstract. It's actually going to be a critical appraisal saying, this is what the authors did. These are the strengths of the paper. These are the limitations of the paper. However, it is still relevant because. Okay. And the final step, step 3. Step 3 has a gap where there's an in-between period that none of the students are involved in, because the 3 primary researchers, we will get together and decide how the systematic review is going to be shaped so that we get the information out as to whether technological intervention is working or not working, and we assign each team a section to write, and we'll even tell you which papers to refer to. So you will already have the papers to refer to. You'll just know the title of your section, and then what I will do is I'll give you a copy of a comparable systematic review so you can see the pattern in which it's written. Does that answer your question?
Yep.
Okay. Anybody else? Questions, concerns? Okay, seeing none. What I'll do is I'll send the email shortly confirming the teams and their databases, and I'll CC Dr. Gerolami on it. And then each team make your appointment with her, and she will sort out your search strategies to make it most efficient. Okay, well, that's pretty much all I have for today. If there's nothing else, you're more than welcome to head out, and we'll see some of you back in the research methods course.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
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 Bye.